artificial intelligence on how to reveal me a glimpse of the glitch of the simulation. Wouldn't that be a real trip? Oh, let's take it together to find out how we can manipulate the script for just long enough for it to cause a chain reaction, no type of effect on the code to cause a reboot to awaken them.
Is everyone having a good Monday?
Yeah.
Monty's like, it's already Tuesday, Monday. Been there, done that. Already did.
Yeah, Monday was cool. Yeah, nice warm spring day.
Yeah, we already asked him who won the election, seeing as he's there. He's
Yeah.
he's
You're
third already.
Well, give me a break. It's only been an hour and 2 minutes of Tuesday. I'm like, you have to wait till 6 p.m. at least, which will be 10 a.m. I think Wednesday.
Spoilers, Monty, spoilers.
Spoilers. That's right.
I live in the States. I don't know yet. We're always the last ones to find out. What do you guys know?
I can tell you what my gut says, and that's Trump's going to walk away with it. It's not even a question in my mind. I know Trump is going to walk away with it.
But
I have a rant to go along with that.
I like the simple things in life.
Yeah, but who's going to win Philly?
I
don't
can tell you who's
even
going to take the
know.
whole thing, actually.
Yeah, who walks away with Philly, I think, is the real question right now.
BLM, they walk away with Philly.
No, they'll burn it down and then walk away with it.
Yeah. What was that, Maury?
Worth, I was listening to last a lot of it. No, fairly renowned in the community, I'm led to believe. The point is, he was saying astrologically, his chart says he's going to win. He'd been saying that for a while too, but he had his birth chart up there again last night. And again, from an astrologer, if you want to, at least one person that, again, fairly well known in the community as being valid, he's saying it'll be Trump.
He said it's not even close. He said he's at the highest point in his chart. Like there's no way he would even
Trump is a landslide to win. There's no question, because Biden isn't competition. Biden isn't an actual possibility to be the president. So there's not really any choice in the matter. And if America's political situation has shown us anything for the last 20 years, it's better the evil you know. And that's the political voting mentality. But then again, Danny and I were talking about something beforehand, and and I was just saying to her, look, it's a very, very vivid indication, the voter turnout already, because I was just reading a stat, and it's something like 90 some odd million Americans have already turned out to vote. And that last election, there was only like 123 million or something total that voted. So it hasn't even come to election day yet. And I think that actually speaks to the desperation of how many people are like desperate for a change, but they're so misled in where they're looking for it, because the American political situation isn't going to alleviate them. So if they feel like in their misguided hearts that if you need to make a change, then you have to get out and vote, that's not what happens ever. And they are just so very, very desperate for the change that they'll take the one vehicle that they feel can actually get them there. But
they've been programmed.
That's right.
They've been programmed, right?
I think that this political environment that they have set up in the United States right now, it's never been more clear than it is now, that they don't even want you to have a choice. I mean, with the way that things are going right now, they're pigeonholing the whole American election system to basically show you that Trump is going to be before he's even been elected, because there's no fucking choice.
And I'm going to enter into my rant now. Now I shall rant. And this is something that I was ranting. I'm putting on makeup. Nick's standing in the bathroom with me as I'm putting on my makeup, and I'm just ranting away. If ever there was a moment of clarity, if ever there was a moment of true transparency, showing us what is really, really going on, this is it. And I'll go into the whole thing of this entire 2020 year of transparency. But this moment right now is a moment of complete and utter transparency as far as the U.S. political system goes. And when I'm pointing at the U.S. political system, and I'm doing it just because it's election night in the U.S., because this comment goes across the board, Canada, England, France, Germany, Italy. It doesn't pick a country, Australia, it's all the same. But because it's election night in the States, I'm using that as our moment of transparency. You have Trump, who is the sitting president right now, who is going to win this election, and he's going to win this election. I don't want to say by a landslide, but it's going to be decisive win. He's decisively going to win. And then I'll get into what's going to happen when that happens. The very fact that the Democratic Party put Joe Biden up against Donald Trump is a full piece of transparency that the Democrats were never going to win. Because there was no possible way that Joe Biden could have won against Trump.
Bernie Sanders was their shot.
If they were, if they were really serious, if the Democrats as a political party was really serious about winning this election, like that it actually meant anything to them, they would have picked someone else. They would have picked Bernie Sanders. If they really wanted to win, they would, because if they put someone, as much as I don't like Bernie Sanders, if you put Bernie Sanders up against Trump, it would have been a very different election. And because Bernie Sanders has the people, has all the young people, right? So regardless of what he did in 2016, which was transparency in and of itself, which is why I don't like Bernie Sanders, he would have had a chance at this election. If they'd picked someone, a young woman who is not Harris, who's charismatic and really put her out and really marketed her, she could have won the election. Putting the very fact that they used Joe Biden, who is A, completely fucking senile, B, so corrupt as fuck, and we know this. Like it's I mean, let alone just leaving Hunter's fucking laptop out of this shit. We've known for years how corrupt he is. He is a bumbling idiot. All we have to do, literally go back when Obama was in office and look at the memes that were created about Biden's continuous foot and mouth disease problem that he had. Continuously. We have like the famous memes of Obama being like, no, Joe. The reason why is because he's a fucking idiot. He's an idiot. Anyone with half a brain cell has already figured out Joe Biden is a non-runner, right? But the very fact that they've put him forward as the candidate, the very fact of everything that is going on right now shows you very transparently, in my opinion, that those that control everything, they don't give a shit who's in power.
They don't even want to make a real good show of it anymore.
They don't even care about making a good show of, like Nick said, they don't even want to make a good show of it anymore, of like, oh, it's a big election showtime, we're going to pretend. They can't even do that. They can't even be bothered. They've put up a candidate for the Democratic election that has no hope of winning. No one in their right mind is going to vote for this guy because the controllers, the people who are actually in control, don't give a shit who is in power, because the person in power is a fucking figurehead. The corporations behind him, behind making all the decisions, all of this stuff, and
That segue to government's basis and that.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is it. Nick and I were talking about the fact that when you look at the 90s, massive changes that happened. One of the biggest ones, of course, is when Bill Clinton, when he was in power, and the UUC that signs the arms and legs of every citizen of America as assets. This is that was one of the moments that when corporations were given personhood, that now corporations are to be treated like persons. And note, I'm not saying people, but like persons, the legal fiction of persons. So it equates corporations and your birth certificate are on the same level now, on the playing field, blatantly, clearly. And now there's not even, they don't even try anymore. There is.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm very sorry. There's a subtle thing that happened. Any ostensible government is there for the people, by the people. That should be the foundation of a government policy, because they're supposed to streamline our lives. They're supposed to keep trade regulated. They're supposed to keep our roads maintained so we can trade.
Health systems, education systems, etc.
They're not supposed to be an institution unto themselves, ever. And what we've got now is we've got governments that have moved away from viewing the people that they are there for and by. They don't view those as the reason anymore. We don't pay the government salaries. The government, even down to the MP level, local business level, they're corporations. They're funded by investments and hedge funds and lobbyists. We're not even freaking minnows in their pond anymore. And it's a very dangerous thing when a government switches, and it's subtly dangerous that when they switch from viewing us as the reason they're being there and the purpose for their existence to this, well, we can make more money and do better for ourselves if we cut that fucking lot out. And that is what we are looking at right now. Our governments have stepped away from being there for us and started to become the dirty fucking corporations a la Amazon and Walmart. And they're not even making a nice political show of it anymore.
They're not even trying to pretend anymore. That's the thing, right? Like, they're not even trying to pretend. That's why I put the theme of today's show was democracy is dead. Now, democracy has been dead for a long fucking time, right? Democracy has been dead for a long fucking time. But this year, 2020, is the year when the fiction of democracy is being laid out bare for everyone to see that it is a complete fiction. It does not exist. It has not existed in a long time. And the death of democracy, and don't get me wrong, I'm not big on the whole democratic system. No democracy has ever worked in history. In history, a democracy has never fucking worked. When we deal with what we're seeing right now, it is, we keep using the word insane. Like, it's insane. It's insane. And it is, but it's also transparent. Transparent. Just today, hold on, let me see if I can pull up. I don't want to pull up the link. Here we go. Just today, okay, you talk about transparency. JP Morgan Chase says economic disaster and more lockdowns will be great for stocks and the stock market. And that's a piece of transparency. Right there is a piece of huge transparency. These guys, these big bankers, the hedge fund guys, etc., they don't give a shit about economic growth. They don't give a shit about whether the little guy and mom and pop businesses are stable and economically strong. They don't care. It's not in their best interest to have a strong economy. So is it shocking to see what's going on right now? To see that, again, England is locking down. Full lockdown, a la March, full on Nick, can you?
I'm so sorry.
Go wash your hands in the bathroom. He's making pastry. He's making pastry right now, so it's a bit of a mess. This lockdown is happening. It's shutting down all the pubs, all the restaurants, all the nightclubs, all the bars, all the social gatherings, anything that is the shops that are non-essential, all being shut down again for 4 weeks. Not 2 weeks, let's get ahead of the curve. No, for 4 weeks. This was announced at 8 o'clock at night on Saturday night. on October 31st, during a full blue moon. Okay. And when does it go in effect? It goes into effect 1 minute after midnight on November 5th. Remember the 5th of November.
Can I just add something in at that point exactly?
Yeah.
So I've mentioned this before on this show, generational events.
Yep.
And there's been a potload of them. And like right back, including Magna Carta, Danny brought up that's a fucking huge generational event. Even in our lifetimes, Cuban Missile Crisis, World War II for some of us, the Vietnam War, 9/11, generational events. Much as I don't give a fuck about numerology or place much store in it, obviously they do.
They do.
And it seems that whenever you have these things that come along that are so perfectly aligned with numerology and the bullshit, it's almost a fucking ear marker for these generational events.
Mm-hmm. And I watched a really good video, and I haven't even had a chance to finish it today because I had to go out this morning to get some groceries. Really good video today by a British guy. Do I have it open? No, I don't. I had to close it just to make sure it wasn't taking up my bandwidth. And he's talking about the numerology of 2020 and talking about these announcements. And the same thing, the British government put out a major announcement of locking down, et cetera, those kind of restriction announcements on June 15th, which is the anniversary of Magna Carta being signed. This is not coincidental. It's not coincidental that they choose these dates. The fact that this lockdown goes into full effect in England on the eve of the 5th of November, everyone needs to go and watch the movie V for Vendetta. That's all I can say. Everyone in the world this week needs to watch V for Vendetta to comprehend that it is playing out in real time right now. The background events of V for Vendetta are playing out in real time right now. Fiction come to life. It has become so transparent, so unbelievably transparent. And Nick was saying the video that I was watching, I'm talking about, and I will put a link to this video in the article that will go along with this in YouTube down below in the description. He brought up something and he said, have you noticed that no one is using the term conspiracy theory this year? It's like all of a sudden the term conspiracy theorist has vanished from the popular vocabulary. Why is that? Because everything that we conspiracy theorists have talked about are fucking coming true. Now, this article in Zero Hedge talking about JP Morgan Chase and about how more lockdowns will be great for stocks. I'm just going to read you this final little quip on it. Hold on. Scrolling. Where is it? Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Sorry, guys. Just give me a second. That's terrible. I can't find the oh, here we go. It says, JP Morgan Chase did in fact state what the tinfoil blogs have been saying for over a decade, that the worse the economy gets, the better it is for the risk assets, as the Fed has no choice but to step in and keep bailing out the bulls, as the alternative, a full-blown market crash, is simply an inconceivable scenario for a country where private sector financial assets now represent a record of 6.2 times the GDP. Tinfoil blogs were right all along. The stuff that we've been talking about for decades, trying to explain to people. When you realize this, you sit there and you say, okay, this is transparency at its absolute finest. If there's one thing we have seen in 2020, it is transparency. And the guy in the video who I talked about, and like I said, I'll put it in below. The one thing he said is you've got to, and what we've talked about for years is, it feels like this is so deliberate. It has to be deliberate as a way of waking the population up. It cannot possibly be anything other than a deliberate alarm clock being set off in the population's ear. Like, here, let's smash your programming. We're going to jar you awake. You've got, because how can, I mean, we've talked about this. Obviously, there's still a lot of people who are still way asleep. But more and more, every time they do these things, every time in Europe, okay? Ireland is in full lockdown. Wales has been in full lockdown for a week. England goes, or the UK goes into full lockdown for 4 weeks. Italy's in lockdown. Spain's in lockdown. Germany's in lockdown. Austria has just started lockdown today. Did I say Spain? Spain is also in lockdown.
It is a mild lockdown. It's basically a curfew.
So a curfew lockdown. So they haven't done that. So it's not gone England way where it's like everything is like being shuttered. These things, each and every, like the people are pissed. Nick and I, it was our anniversary on the 31st. We were over at the pub when this announcement was made. And every single person who walked by was just like, are you fucking, there was an air of, they knew it was coming. Everyone's known that this lockdown was coming. But beyond that, well, for fuck's sakes, we knew it was happening. God damn it. But the anger behind it of like, this is fucking bullshit. And the rules that they're putting in play, things like all the schools are remaining open. Schools, universities, college, high school, nurseries, they're all going to remain open. But no one should go to work unless you absolutely have to. All employers must keep their staff at home. If there's any possible way of getting the staff to work from home. And all necessities are closed, but bars, pubs, restaurants are going to be closed. But the old people and those who are perhaps of fragile health, they don't need to do anything special. No, they don't need to go and do anything like go into an extreme lockdown situation. No. They can just keep going on as long as they follow the basic public rules. It makes no fucking sense. There's no logic when you compile all these rules together. There's no logic to it. And people are literally going, it's this bad? But you still want my kids to go to school? It's that dangerous that we cannot let the children go anywhere near the grandparents, and we cannot let the children interact with other children outside of school, but they can interact with them in school. Yet they're not telling the elderly or those who are of fragile health to go into full on, they must be completely in quarantine. There's no sense to it. And the people get it. The people around us get it. They're like, what the fuck?
Backtracking to that part of what Danny was saying with the conspiracy theorist term going away. And the other part of that is that we've conclusively seen since the beginning of 2020 that our entire world is based on lies anyway, right? From Jeffrey Epstein's and Prince Andrew's, diddling and being pedophiles and children going missing, at record numbers, to lies about COVID-19 and the virus and what it is, to like seeing that presidential candidates are up to their fucking ass in dirty dealings and money laundering scandals and bullshit like that. Our entire world is based on lies, and the media lies about it the worst of them all. So yeah, there's really no fucking sense in keeping that phrase around anymore, for both sides of it. But it was a slap in the face. Yes, it's kind of gone the way of the dodo, that word or that phrase.
They did actually try, if you remember earlier in the year, they did try and start to get, they wanted traction with to call people conspiracy theorists. If you remember, there was a couple of articles popping up.
They tried.
Yeah, they tried. And everyone's like, yeah, fucking whatever. Like,
yeah.
Even,
not buying that.
The freedom movement of trying to get out of lockdown, the deputy police guy who was nicknamed Chief Wiggum because he's roughly the same size, he referred to anyone like sovereign, human rights, everything else like that. Anyone that was going to protest, they're part of the tin hat foil brigade, and so they slipped that in there. But the transparency thing, very quickly, I will keep you updated with Victoria, because if our third
I want to
wave
hear what's
starts,
going on in Victoria, because you're out of lockdown now, aren't you?
yeah, and because of the trauma of lockdown, we're sort of like forgetting the past and moving forward, because it's as you saw, you watched that documentary that you shared, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good thing, but because it's on Sky News, people have already made a decision of like, oh, well, they're full of shit, so I won't watch it. So they're looking at, I mean, some of us watch CNN, mainly laugh at it, but you know what
Maybe
I mean?
to make, come up with next day's jokes.
Yeah. But you got to, even Stephen Crowder said, if you want to, he's talking to a young black man at one of his Change My Minds. And the very articulate black man said, I'm not into politics. Where should I start? And Stephen said, if you watch CNN, also watch Fox. You watch both sides. You watch the right and then the left, and then you do your research and then make up your own mind. Yeah, exactly. What we do. And with the whole conspiracy theory, you saw that meme be shared around, because I know I shared it. I need new conspiracy theories because all my old ones came true.
They all came true. They've all been proven. I need new ones now. Someone, quick, toss me a new conspiracy theory.
Got one for you, Danny. Danny,
yeah.
let me throw something in here. Well, to just about anybody. Changing the shift just a little bit. What happens when you put two inert chemicals together that with a catalyst have a violent reaction? You know, kaboom. Like wood and gasoline laying behind each other, there's nothing. You put a match in there and you got a fire, just as a simple example. What about it? Just step back from all of this and look at it and say, what if all this shit that we're talking about all over the world at the same time is nothing but a gigantic catalyst?
Yep. Absolutely.
To wake the hell up.
Catalyst to wake up. And that's I go back and forth. I mean, God knows you guys have heard me go back and forth on this shit for ages. When you look at all these different things, because I look at every angle, and you have days where you go, okay, it's got to be like this, and days it's got to be like that. But the more I look at it, it's like it cannot be anything except transparency, like a forcing of people to wake up. There's too many things going on that are so blatantly in your face, corrupt, fraud, illegal. And we have enough people speaking out about it. So there's another news article or video of a guy here in England. His name is Lord Sumter, something like that. Some lord from the House of Lords, anyways. Now, if you look on the surface of him, i.e., if anyone goes to research the things that he's saying, his track record is impeccable as far as the public would be concerned. He was judge in the highest level of courts. He was Queen's Counsel. He was like, this guy is a real, like, if someone's gonna talk about legalities, this guy's the opinion that holds water as far as the genuine muggles are concerned, right? He has been so outspoken this year. The shit that he has said. He's basically did a discussion 4 days ago, I think, 5 days ago, and I only got a chance to watch about the first 15 minutes of his symposium. And he outlines that the British government is everything they've done with this COVID-19 is illegal. Every lockdown has been illegal. Every withdrawing of people's rights has been illegally done. Every step that they've put into place has been illegal. It is, the government has to be held accountable for the decisions they made. He comes out and says, coronavirus, this whole COVID-19 is a crock of shit. Yes, there is a virus. And you know what? It's milder than the common flu. Yes, people have died. Of course they have. People die of the flu. People die of colds. But the average person of death in the UK is something like 82 years of age. And again, as we always talk about, is the fact that all the people who've died, the vast majority of them, to the exception, like 95% of the people who've died in the UK have had not died because of COVID. They've died with COVID. They've had massive heart attacks. They've had cancer. They've had hypertension. They've had dementia. They've had like bring up the list, but they happen to have COVID with it. We know how all the testing goes. He goes through and he talks about the fact of the PCR test is a crock of shit. And he lays it out. The PCR test is useless. Anyone using the PCR test to try and judge people who are infected or not, it just throw them out. Throw them out. It means absolutely, the data from that is absolutely useless. Now, the UK general public are going to look, and if you hear what this guy's saying, are going to be like, okay, well, wait, when he's talking about this being illegal, and holy shit, like, if someone would know, this is the guy who would fucking know if the British government's actions have been illegal or not. So there's all these people who are coming out, who are high up, who are questioning. Like, you come back to that. How could they, the quintessential they, how could they have thought they were going to be able to get away with this? Because it's just being blown open. And now I'm suspecting the month of November is going to be the most insane thing we have ever witnessed in our lifetime. I think that we are entering now into a month of complete and utter insanity, and that everyone should be prepared for fucking anything. Be prepared for anything, for anything to happen, for news. It is going to be crazy because we have so many things all happening at once. It doesn't matter who wins the election in America, there's going to be riots. There is going to be uprisings. There's going to be martial law put in place in certain cities because it's going to happen that way because they've set it up. The media has set it up that way. All the groundwork has been put in place so that regardless of who wins the American election, there's going to be huge ramifications. And it's not just going to be in the States. You could see that spreading into Canada, into England, into other places around the world. Shit is fucking insane right now. And I'm telling you, like, the stuff that we're hearing, like you say about the Scandemic Exposed, Marseille, exactly. That's a great one too. That's on BitChute, I think, the movie Scandemic. I don't know about popcorn. Like, having your popcorn ready has been kind of the joke. Coffee and popcorn on the go and ready to go at a moment's notice. This month is going to require a lot of coffee and a lot of fucking popcorn. A lot of fucking popcorn. And pot. Yeah, Jimmy, it's going to require a lot of cannabis. A lot of cannabis.
Thank God.
Let me ask you a question, Danny. What I've seen in the States, now granted I'm in Pensacola and it seems to be pretty low key here, and other cities are, I guess, not so low key. Like Dawn is in Houston, and I hear tell that's kind of different by quite a bit. For instance, my question is, what I've seen of all of these rioters, even in Portland and in I guess, what is it, Minneapolis, you know, with that shooting up there, all of these terrible riots, they're not spontaneous. They're sponsored.
No, they're not.
They're paid for. So that tells me what I'm looking at. It is not going to come from just a genuine reaction.
Nope.
From the masses. It's going to be sponsored.
That's why I said the groundwork has already been laid. The groundwork has already been laid. It's all prepared.
Don't you think that the opposition, say for instance that Trump and his forces do win, and so now the other side is there to pay for all of this stuff to erupt all over the place. They know that, and don't you think they can't stop that if they want to?
Have they so far?
No, that's the question. So that leads to the next question. If they have the means, listen, I can tell you, they have the means to stop all of this stuff in the track if they want to. So they let it go. So that tells me that actually the old maxim, two wings of the same bird. They are
Exactly.
working hand in hand if they let it go, because I know for
Exactly.
sure they can stop it in a heartbeat if they want to.
Exactly, Maury. And that's exactly what I was saying at the beginning of the show. It's definite proof. The controllers, the actual controllers, are getting exactly what they want. And regardless of riots, and the riots will happen, they'll all be paid. No, I'm sure you're going to have a few people who are going to be, they're hardcore Biden supporters. They're hardcore extreme left, right? Who are going to do the same thing like we saw when Trump won against Hillary Clinton, the women in the street going, nah! Okay, there are going to be those. There are going to be those people who are so devastated that Trump has won that they will lose their shit. And let's look at the emotional volatility right now. And again, we've been talking about this for weeks, the buildup and how the emotional volatility, the energies are like this. And people are already walking a fine line, like a really, really fine line of sanity. So all it's going to take is that, like you said, a match. Drop that match. And in this case, in the US, the match is the elections. Drop the match. And you're going to see it. So you have your Black Lives Matter and your Antifa, etc. They're going to riot all over the place. And they will. And the worst of the problem of that is they're going to draw in all these young kids who don't have a fucking clue. They're going to draw in all these young college students and young people who have been hook, line, and sinker swallowed the rhetoric. And they're going to end up getting involved, and they're going to end up getting hurt. And that is the saddest part of this, is so many young people will be drawn into this because that's what the colleges and universities and the schools have been feeding them, right? The schools have been force feeding them, drip feeding them continuously for, in some cases, some of these universities, it's like a generation of drip feeding this kind of bullshit that goes along with the whole Antifa, Black Lives Matter narrative. And so they will explode, and it's going to be a powder keg.
I don't see it. I honestly don't see it in the people themselves.
No, and that's what I'm saying. But Maury, it's going to be and not in your age group, not in my age group.
I agree that.
Not in our age groups. We're not going to see it because most of us have been there and done that. Most of us are relatively, at the very least through our life's experience, has shown us that all these riots are fucking bullshit. But the young people are going to get drawn in, and it's not going to be paid people, because it's not everyone is paid in these riots, right? Like that's the whole thing. They pay a few to start the riots, and then all the young people get pulled into it because they think they're doing something positive. They think they're making a statement about positive things that have to happen because they don't have a clue. They've no concept of how brainwashed they've become.
I don't see.
Go ahead, Bossy.
I don't see excuse me. I'm sorry. Let me finish this and then I'll.
Yeah. Go ahead, Maury.
The whole point I'm trying to get at is, I don't see that grassroots support for Biden at all anywhere, even in the colleges. Yes, they hate Trump. There's a lot of that, but there's not a strong support. Well, like Dawn mentioned, and we all pretty much saw the pictures of the escort that the pro-Trumpers gave to Biden's thing in Texas. They basically ran him out of the state because they surrounded him with about, I don't know how many fucking trucks with Trump banners on them. That's grassroots. That isn't paid for and sponsored. That's people coming together of their own volition, more than somebody paying for a goddamn 800,000 bus 10 times over to drive them in.
Right. But here's the thing is, but Maury, I get it.
Okay. I know what you're saying. They'll sponsor some, but
just trust me, it's going to happen. And it's not going to happen in every city, right? Because obviously you're going to have cities that are hardcore Republicans where all the kids have been raised Republican, who they'll be cheering. But you're going to be talking about your other cities, your Philadelphia's, your Minneapolis's, your Baltimore's, your fucking New York's, your all over California, etc. You're going to have cities, and Seattle's, your Oakland's, they're going to erupt And even if
May
it's
I
only 10 cities, even if it's only,
May-
hold on, Bossy, even if it's only 10 cities, all it takes is those cities to erupt to all of a sudden ignite all kinds of little fires everywhere else from the sparks that
you
come
really
from
think
that.
there's that volatility in the masses?
Yep.
You really think
Yes, I
that?
do.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
I don't see
Oh,
it,
yeah.
but
Oh,
you
yeah.
might be right and I'm wrong on that one. So we'll have to see how
I
that
hope
plays
you're
out.
right and I'm wrong. Trust me.
I just
I
don't
hope you're
sense
right.
it. I don't know, but granted, I know I must be in some kind of a bubble around here, and the rest of the world is volatile as hell.
I told you they're setting Houston up for that right now with the
They are, but are the people on the streets that intense about that too, Dawn?
Think about how intense people are in general right now.
Yeah.
Everyone is intense.
They're boarding up all the businesses.
Yeah.
Like now. Everyone's very intense.
Hold on,
guys,
everyone pause for a second. Look, Bossy, go ahead.
What is if this is actually a good thing? I mean, you know, you can't know evil if you haven't faced evil, right? You don't know what you're missing if you never had those rights. So what is if that is such a massive wake-up call for people? If they participate with it and they see the pure evil, wouldn't that be like one massive lesson for everyone?
It could
like
be. Absolutely.
like the
Bossy,
moment,
I'm not gonna
oh my
argue.
God, we're the baddies, right? Like, are we the baddies?
Listen, I saw a great meme go by actually this morning that I read it, and I've read it multiple times, and I can't remember who the quote is. It's somebody older and famous saying, you know, all those kids out there, by kids I mean anyone under 30, I guess, are blaming our generation for having ruined the planet. And it was like, listen, when we went grocery shopping, we brought everything home in paper bags. Our candy, you bought by the handful and you put into a little paper bag. Our milk was delivered every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning in glass jugs, and the old jugs were left out to be washed and sterilized and reused. Our pop was in glass bottles that you then took back to the bottle company, who then gave you your pennies back, and they cleansed and sanitized and reused them. He says, we walked to school every fucking day, no matter how far away school was. And if we didn't walk, we rode a bike. And when we went on vacation, it was going camping. It was going to the cottage. It was, okay. And it's like, you kids are blaming us. You're the ones whose parents drive you back and forth to school every day in your 4x4, 8-cylinder engine gas guzzlers, who go on vacation, taking an airplane wherever you bloody well go, who use plastic in everything. It's not, and there's a disconnect there. And this is what I'm saying about the young people and the programming, right?
But Danny, it's the same here. The people, they never tell the people to go to the fucking companies and bitch to the companies. Over here, it's like, oh my God, straws are so dangerous. People use straws. Okay, we use what we can buy, for crying out loud.
Exactly.
If you have a problem with that, go to the goddamn source. If you have a problem with chocolate being made out of fucking slavery, then
don't buy that
buy
brand.
another product. That's such easy. But
thing
no
about
one is telling
straws,
the people.
One of the thing about the straws and just like the whole plastic thing.
Yeah.
We have to ban plastic. Well, no, we have to ban oil, petroleum plastic. There's hemp and bamboo, but they don't make, like in California.
Exactly.
We're banning straws, and so you get a paper one wrapped in cellophane, which is plastic.
Wrapped in fucking plastic. I know.
Yeah, but cellophane is a good one, isn't it? Isn't it biodegradable?
But this is the stupidity. But then you have the environmentalist people who are like, look at us, we did such a good job, we got plastic straws banned. Fucking well done, you morons. Well done. Yeah. You took away plastic straws, and that saved what? 14 birds? Without actually doing anything positive. And that was the whole thing at the beginning of this whole COVID thing and the lockdown, when they tried to ban, you guys don't remember this, when they tried to ban people bringing their multi-use grocery bags to the store. And they tried here, they tried in several places in the States, in Canada, and I think it was in Holland, I think, or maybe it was Germany, where they tried to ban people from bringing their reusable grocery bags to the store and force them to use back to the old-fashioned fucking hello, we're in the 1990s, plastic grocery bags. And it was just like, are you listening to yourself? Like, literally, are you fucking listening to yourself? And people kind of went, twitch, 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 twitch.
Which program do I accept?
No, yeah, exactly. Which program do I accept? My programs are clashing. I can't use plastic, but the government says I must use plastic. All breaking down the narratives, though. And that's what this year has been about. Is like every government thing going on, everything that comes out of banks, that comes out of fucking big businesses, etc. I keep joking about, where's the measles gone? If you guys remember, in December, we had a major measles problem. December of 2019, it was the whole world was going to die of measles if every university student was not inoculated with an extra one. They've already been inoculated. They proved that didn't work, so they need an extra MMR. Otherwise, they're all going to die. Well, guess what? Measles is fucking gone. Have you heard anything about measles in the news? Not a fucking word. Right? Acute flaccid myelitis, i.e. polio, that happens every year. And when all those kids get their polio shots before school, and it always happens October, November. Have you heard anything about it? We've had a few little bits. Oh, it's going to come. Oh my God. We're seeing a couple of cases, but it just disappears. Because right now it's all coronavirus. Oh, COVID vaccines. In the South Korea, 82 people have died in the COVID vaccine trials, I believe, in South Korea. 85, 82, something like this. Hello? What? And they're still pushing it. And this whole thing of pushing this whole narrative
the
of...
British government has just come out and said they're going to really ramrod through the AstraZeneca trials here.
Yeah, so there you go. The British government said they're going to ramp the AstraZeneca trials, are going to push them through anyway, even though literally they've had at least, is it 3 deaths now in England?
A fucking bunch of people got sick.
And a bunch of people who've been sick, but they're going to push that through. This tells you that there's fucking more going on here, like way fucking more going on than just some virus.
Did you, Danny, did you read that article I sent you from RT where scientists are baffled that influenza has disappeared?
Oh, fuck that. That was one of my favorite articles of the week. That one goes up on my award wall. Article of the week. There's no influenza this year.
So I sent Danny a couple articles, and I think she touched on it last week with the fucking Fermi Paradox stuff.
Yeah, I talked about
with
that.
all the, Commander Fravor, Bob Lazar, the work Joe Rogan's doing, and that Jeremy Corbyn guy about aliens, the guy from Blink-182, conclusively fucking proving to the world that, guess what? Aliens are a thing, and they have been for a long fucking time, and our governments have known about them. So even the premise of something like the Fermi Paradox, and if you guys don't know, it basically says that the fucking reason that it ascribes a reason that fucking intelligent life hasn't reached out to us yet on this planet.
Therefore, it can't exist.
It gets all kinds of government funding, schools of thought, fucking people are fucking writing their theses and shit on this thing, but it's garbage. Absolute fucking garbage. And this COVID stuff, now, you had quoted, Monty, something coming from RT. Well, there was another article, I believe it was on RT, and it was the fucking top one, I believe, today, and it was talking about how the stats that they're basing this next lockdown on are fucking 4 times blown out of proportion, and the most recent stats are not even being considered because it's an inconvenient fucking truth for the narrative being pushed.
Yeah,
so
it's still in March. Yeah, sorry.
Back to when the fucking days when humans were banging fucking rocks together to make fire and they were calling the winds gods. Ever since those fucking days, religion has played politics, right? And all through the Crusades, Muslim world, Jewish world, politics and religion are married. They're fucking hand in hand. You can't separate them. And as much as they've tried over the years in different civilizations, it really doesn't happen. Guess what? Science is stepping into the realms of religion. And you can't have fucking governmental sway unless you're an official religion, I guess.
Oh. Hey, Nick, before you go away, are you still here?
I'm kind of floating. I'm cooking.
I sent you later on Steam a cool link about the speed of light, because I saw the other day a link with Have you ever heard Smarter Every Day about this YouTube channel? A guy called Destin makes cool experiments.
No.
So he has some science connections, and there was one guy talking about the speed of light, that it's about a weird thought. So they say if you send a message to Mars, it takes like the time to arrive there and the time to get back. So after the equation, it also could mean it takes double the time to get to Mars, but it's instantly sent back. So they say now that their equations basically are fucked, because you can interpret it the same way, that the light is actually faster to Mars and is instantly sent back, because it doesn't matter, the time is the same, right? So they are saying now that the speed of light can be slower, but it can also be faster. I sent you the link later on Steam, so you can have a look at it.
I mean, Bozzy, the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about things like that is the funny and fancy things that math can do, and the disconnect between the observable fucking empirical universe where we can actually track and record things, and the fancy things that fucking physicists do with mathematical equations on paper and says, well, it should be theoretically possible. Fair enough, but our fucking universe doesn't seem to work that way, you know. And all your fancy math that they plug for different like gravity experiments and all the dark matter bullshit with the equation, and has to be there because 80% of our universe is fucking. But the empirical stuff.
But we can't find it.
Well, we can, because Einstein says it's right there. Energy equals matter, right? And fucking, if it's measurable, then it's there, and it's got to be energy of some kind. It's just humans seem to have a fucking massive pigeonhole in their brain of what they consider energy. They go electricity, and that's it. That's where they stop with energy, right? But dark energy, oh fuck.
Exactly.
Well, Nick's right about Trump and the religion thing, because he's right up Israel's ass, and he's part of that third temple deal, and we all need to watch Jared Kushner. So he's right in the money there. We're being sold right into a script.
This is
science to climate science, it's a religion.
Yeah, COVID science to climate science, it's all a fucking religion. And this is it. Isn't it so funny how, again, when we talk about like measles, do you remember last year we were all dying because of global warming? Do you remember that? What was that little fucking girl with the fucking braids?
Greta.
Yeah, Greta, that's her name. I can't even remember her fucking name. But last year, that was climate science, the climate science. And the science is settled.
And they all use computer models.
And they all use computer.
Yeah, it's like, that's a false reality, right? Where like the whole thing that started off the whole COVID thing globally was the institute in London or whatever it was, where in the UK, 250,000 people will die. And then about a week later, oops, sorry, we moved the decimal point. It's 10 times less. And the media ignored it, and the government ignored it.
Yep.
It's actually 10 times less.
And
than
even
that.
the guy who wrote, and I love that one. That one is his best example, because it was the guy who wrote that paper was completely misquoted on it. Like, they took his paper and the media took it out of context to do this, like, 250,000 people are going to die this month and blah, whatever it was. I can't remember what the exact number was. And he went public and was just like, that's not what it says. It says this is where it goes, and about decimal places, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he tried, and the media is still fucking quoting the original fucking shit, even though he himself, the guy who wrote the paper, is come out and been like, no, you fucktards. That's not what I said. That's not what the paper says. There's a narrative they want. And they're picking the science that supports the narrative and the actions that they want. And it doesn't matter. And they force beliefs off of that. They will wrap everything up that they possibly can. The fear, to keep the people in this state of fear, because we know people who are afraid are therefore controllable, right? We know that this is very easy science and well proven. The more afraid and angry people are, the more easily controlled they are. They keep the narrative going. And they're cherry picking whatever scientific piece furthers their storyline. their narrative of what it is that they're trying to push. None of it makes sense. But again, it's transparency, right? Because now it is so blatantly obvious that it is not about COVID-19. It is obviously not about some horribly contagious virus that is killing millions of people. So what's the narrative? And like I said, we keep going back to this question. We keep going back to that one question. What is the narrative? Well, obviously control structures is part of it. They're trying to keep everyone just completely offside. November is going to be a crazy fucking month. And I don't think December is going to be much better. Or 2021 necessarily.
But it will be amazing for the meme economy.
The meme economy is going to boom over the next 2 months. The next 2 months.
I am going to rule.
Yeah, we are fucking, I got my memes ready to go. Fuck yeah. The meme economy is going to boom over the next 2 months because of the shit that's about to happen and the shit that's going to play out. It's going to be fucking crazy. There was something I wanted to talk about. This video, again, this one that I was talking about this morning, the British one, with the guy talking about the numerology of all these announcements and how they're being put out and placed and different pieces are putting into play. It is one to really take note of, and I'm going to bring it up. So we have the astrology show this Saturday coming up on the 7th. I'm going to look at my calendar.
Yes.
On the 7th, Saturday, the 7th of November, it'll be at 12 noon UK time, GMT. We're back to GMT time again. Sorry for everyone in North America. You're going to have to get up early for this one, but it's the only way we can get all of us on the screen at the same time. When we are talking about this kind of stuff and the astrology stuff, I want to talk about the numerology things as well, because these things are all playing out. And regardless, it's kind of one of those things that regardless of whether people believe in astrology or believe in numerology, you don't have to believe it yourself. All you have to know is that they do. Right? They do. And anyone who can't see the way the dates keep playing out, the times and dates it can't be coincidental. Like, that's not coincidental, not for a long shot.
Yeah, the pattern recognition. Also, have you noticed this has been a meme sometime this year as well? Like, I think it's just North America, but with eyesight, you've got 20/20, and you put that next to transparency. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah, and that, yeah, I know, and that meme was like back that was like February.
Yeah, way
March,
back. Yeah,
we were making
3 or
jokes
4
about
years
that.
ago.
Yeah, like
remember those
years
heady
ago.
days of February?
Yeah, the 482 days of February. That was exactly it. But what's in a word? What's in an expression? And this is it. We talk about having 20/20 vision. Well, 20/20 has been a vision in transparency. Like, holy shit. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
I'm at that point. It's like, oh, you come on! Like watching that Sky News doco, where I almost started screaming at the screen, just to vent energy, because it's like it's there. I feel like, bear with me, in a Star Wars documentary, Harrison Ford was talking about George Lucas's style of directing, where George just hands you a script and goes, well, then do it. It's on the screen. Just do it. And I've learned that I do the same hand action as Harrison Ford. It's there. Just do it. and that's sort of where it's like, I think people. I'll float a theory that I'm thinking of right now. Do you think people that haven't woken up, they're making a choice to stay asleep because they're taken out of their comfort zone?
Maybe. Even not making a choice is still making a choice, right? Like, that's, you can choose left, you can choose right, and you can choose not to choose. But even choosing not to choose is still a choice.
Yeah, but by not choosing, you're staying in the slumber. where, well, yeah, I don't dabble with politics. It's like, yeah, and you've seen the last century of politics and how it's fucked humanity.
Yeah, tacit
Maybe it's
consent
time
hasn't
to.
worked out well for us.
Yeah, exactly. As Nick just said, tacit consent really hasn't worked out very well for us.
And what was the number one killer of the 20th century? Government.
Government. I thought it was medical malpractice, but yeah, you're right. It still comes under the heading of government.
Yeah, and
anyway.
that includes Mao, Hitler, Pol Pot. Even this is where we get the whole
I'll go even
insanity.
farther and say it's government and church.
Yeah, well, see, the church is, well, that's not really, yeah, that's a governmental thing. I still have moments of flashes of like, what the fuck? Yeah, this is where I get up my question of like, are you a fuckwit? Because like all these kids in America with their you call them cell phones, you know, the iPhones and the Androids. It's like, we want Marxism and communism. Fucking what? Like, if you want everything to be free, I can't remember the meme that's been popping out in the last week, where it's like, if you're not happy in a free country and you want socialism, go to a country where you don't have rights or something. You know what I mean? Where it's like, actually go to a communist country and see how that works out for you.
But
I laughed.
Wait. Honestly, I have lived in those fucking countries, and in a lot of ways, they're a lot freer than what we have in the fucking West.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about communist China.
Yeah,
right. So like I was just
going
to say,
monarchy country where it's like that, and it was still
Oh,
freer
yeah,
than
yeah.
fucking.
oh yeah. But this is the whole thing. Like those kids picture. Someone posted a picture and it was like two people walking down the street wearing T-shirts saying they were Maoists. I'm like, so it's when is Maoist a fucking thing? Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, how fucking stupid do you have to be
Mhm.
to think that that's a choice?
Yeah.
But that's how
Yeah.
programmed
Communism
these
is a
kids are.
choice.
Like that's how programmed they are, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff here that has been programmed. And okay, and we're not going to get into the socialist thing because the whole socialist thing, there's a difference between socialism and communism. Countries that have the highest standard of living, the highest education, the highest healthcare, i.e. Finland, Norway, Denmark, they're socialist countries. So let's not go in there because in America, they've programmed the word socialist to mean something it doesn't mean, right? Like but they've convinced the children of the same thing though. Like they have not. The programming is passed through in such a way that the ability to have a conversation on the topic has been railroaded. You cannot have the conversation about it. People have been so heavily programmed. And it's one of those pieces. Like I got into it. I used to run a chat forum back, 2011, where 90% of the people in the chat forum were American. And we got into a conversation about healthcare. And they're all like, healthcare is socialism. I'm like, yeah, it fucking works though. Because like we get cancer in Canada and we don't go bankrupt. And if we have a heart attack in Canada, we don't go bankrupt. If you have a problem in childbirth in Canada, you don't go bankrupt because, right? But a socialist healthcare system
that are
works.
essential things.
Right. And there's a subtle play here. There's a subtle play in that, right? For America, everyone and all the Republicans would point to Obamacare and be like, see, told you it doesn't work. I'm like, no, because that fucking system that he put into power was so fucking corrupt, so unbelievably fucked from the dead center. Of course it wasn't going to work. If anything was an exercise of this can't possibly fucking work, it was Obamacare, right? Like it was completely fucked. It's the same thing in the States. Well, for example, and this is fact. When you talk about renewable energy sources, when they put up, it was like everyone's like green energy. It was like, okay, well, we'll give that a try. And they put up all those wind turbines that they knew wouldn't work, that they knew would break down, that they knew had no replaceable parts, that they knew were not going to generate anywhere near enough energy compared to the cost of installing them in the first place. It was done deliberately, so that then the government could turn around and go, see, it didn't work, but we tried. We tried. See, we tried, but it didn't work. So we're going to go back to pick a fucking other energy source, right?
Yeah.
Coal, oil, nuclear,
Gas.
whatever.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, like the conversation gets interrupted by the programming in that you can't, people say, well, to this day, I meet people all the time who are like, green energy is a fucking waste of time. It won't fucking work. I'm like, yeah, the green energy you're allowed to have. But isn't it funny? Like the solar panels that you can buy in Canada and the States are so poor quality, so fucking poor quality, so expensive that you can't possibly, well, you can make them work, but like the reality of it is ridiculous. And yet countries like Norway have got solar power panels that were, the stuff in North America, I think it's got a 3% or 6% efficiency rate. Like 14 peak or 14% peak efficiency rate. They have solar panels in Northern Europe countries that aren't underneath that boot that are run at 25, 30% efficiency. But you can't import those panels into Canada. It's illegal. You must buy the lower quality ones that are in Canada. And like, this is just one little tiny example of how these things work to program the public to a certain response. So you now have literally a whole shit ton of people who are like, green energy is a crock of shit, can't possibly work. That's because every example you were given was deliberately a crock of shit so that you would come to that conclusion.
Like people say, the windmills don't work. Well, the ones that were built don't work. But have you heard of fucking Holland? They've had windmills for centuries. And like, I mean, they're pumping water, but still, that's still energy. You know,
yeah, it's
people like
energy.
us, we don't have funding or a white coat, but we're more scientific than the mainstream scientists now.
But Monty, those windmills in the Netherlands, they were also made to grind corn and all other grains. They moved tons and tons of heavy rocks in a circle, and we can't build a fucking windmill that actually works.
Well, no, you can. That's the thing, right? My dad was, I've told you guys this before, my dad was in green energy for 25 years. He worked with a wind tower design, that when they took a fully installed wind tower and they tested it, a vertical access wind tower, and they took it to Guelph University in Ontario, Canada, and they set it up in their wind tunnel to run the tests. People from all over the university, from the physics department, came to see it because they were like, this breaks all the laws of physics. This can't possibly fucking work this way, because it blew all their formulas for the efficiency of wind towers. It blew everything out of the water. Was my dad able to sell even one of those babies? No. You know why? Because the government didn't want them. They don't want wind power that fucking works. They don't want it. And again, it may not be the government, it's those that control the government.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter what party is in. It doesn't matter in Canada if it's the Liberals, the Conservatives, the NDP. It doesn't matter in the States if it's the Republicans or the Dems, Labor or Conservatives. It doesn't fucking matter. Their controllers do not want these things. So therefore, you, the people, don't get these things. It's out there. The technology is out there. But they will do everything to make sure everyone believes that the technology is no good and cannot possibly work, because that's their agenda.
Don't get me started on flying fucking cars.
Like here in Australia, we've got America's the land of the brave and the free and whatever it is. In Australia, we're referred to as the sunburnt country, and we've only gotten to solar panels in the last 20 years, 20, 30 years. The White House had solar panels in the 70s, and there was, brace yourself, I learned this from Al Gore. So anyway, there was a a Chinese Australian. He actually left Australia and went back to China because in Australia he was not allowed to do research and development (R&D) in Australia. He actually went back to China and started.
Communist China.
Yeah, communist China, isn't it? And that's such a happy place. They actually, it just doesn't make sense. Most, 80% of our landmass is desert, and so if we actually, I read somewhere, the
put
amount
out
of
fucking
power,
solar farms in the fucking desert in the center of Australia. Holy shit!
if we capture, I think it's a quarter of the sun's energy that's pumped out in a day, we could run the planet for a year or something. It's that ridiculous, and it's so much more. And we're ignoring Nikola Tesla right now as well, with all that weird ass physics defying stuff, because the education system shit house.
Here comes Nick again. Nick's coming over. I'll just move. I'm just gonna move that over there because now you've just triggered him.
Well, it's just because you're talking about wireless transmission of power, and everybody seems to be thinking that his Wardenclyffe Tower was a transmission device, and from what I gather, it wasn't a transmission device. Tesla wanted to take that collector and use it as an energy,
like a pump.
Yeah, exactly. And pump power into the planet. And he wanted to use the planet Earth as the antenna where the energy was stored. And he would that rod, that specially tuned rod, you would sink into the Earth. Power would come from the Earth. So in theory, technically could work, but I'm pretty sure it might not have been a great idea for the longevity of things.
Well, it wouldn't work now because the phones and everything with the transistor and everything else would be fried because of instead of earthing the electricity, the electricity is coming from the Earth. So if we bring it in now, we have to replace everything, like everything that you're using right now, so I can talk to you. Yeah, all that has to be replaced.
But also now here's a little thought that I had triggered into me, and it doesn't really amount to a lot. But you think, okay, when you look at places like Drumheller in Alberta, or the Badlands, where it looks like, if you look at a Google Maps version of it, it looks like a fucking massive electrical event happened there, a massive plasma event. And it doesn't look like it shot down into the ground. It looks like that plasma blasted up out of the earth and just fucking carved a massive scar. And you wonder what kind of forces are at play at something like that, right? And obviously, if you look at the planet, there's that kind of scarring all over, and it isn't just one isolated event. You can kind of see that there's different ages in the surrounding geography of these massive plasma scarring events.
Yep.
And so now you bring in humanity in the Industrial Revolution, and the only way you have one of these massive plasma events is if you have electricity or plasma just jetting out of the planet, right? So with us, since the advent of the alternating current grid system that Nikola Tesla put into place in New York City originally, since that fucking key discovery where he made that you have to ground the circuits, otherwise you fucking kill people, before they before they put on the circuit in New York City, him and a guy named Steinmetz made this discovery, and they were killing engineers, and they realized, holy fuck, we better fix this before they turn the grid on an actual city and fucking kill millions. So they've been grounding massive amounts of juice into the planet for 100 years. Now, with the mass and the density of our planet, it really shouldn't make all that much difference. But you got to wonder, when it comes to one of those add-up plasma events, like with all the cosmic energy that's coming in, and the shit that they're discovering that's coming from our cosmic neighborhood, the amount of juice that we're putting into the planet on a daily basis to make our fucking Earth a massive capacitor, I gotta guess is getting close to what Tesla wanted to do anyway.
I mean, the idea of Tesla was actually pretty amazing. I mean, how I understood it is he used that rod in the ground and he used that rod in the sky to connect basically the upper atmosphere to the ground, which have different potentials, right? And you use it like you have two glasses of water, and you have like the string from one glass into the other, and the water flows over the string. So the idea was, how I understood it, to almost connect these ones so that they even each other out, but you plug something in the middle to actually extract the energy from that flow. But from how I understand it, you have such gigantic electricity Yeah, exactly. Such a vast differential between those that it would literally just fry everything once you let it flow.
And he had a massive fucking grounding block. I don't even think he used I think he used a fucking massive block underneath Wardenclyffe Tower as his ground. So that was beast right there.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a really interesting article that I was reading, and we touched on it, I think, a couple of weeks ago. Talk about what Nick is talking about the Earth being a capacitor, right? All this energy going in. When we look at the plasma, the magnetopause, okay? And we see all those videos, you guys have seen me show them, where you show the blast from the sun comes in, it hits the magnetosphere of the planet, and then it goes around, and then it goes into the poles, right? Like that energy goes into the poles. So all those blasts that are coming in is being put into the poles, into the planet. And this is one of the things that's so important right now. And this is why there's who was it? Is something Israel. He does some shows on this, and he talked about this a few weeks ago. And he was talking about scientists that he has been talking to who are saying that they're expecting these massive, NASA, those kind of are expecting these these massive amount of energy that's coming in, that sooner or later the planet reaches an overload. And when the planet reaches an overload, you're going to start getting, like we haven't been experiencing this for the last couple of years, plasma ground arcs coming off out of the ground, and where it's going to start going up. What the fear was that they were talking about was that they were looking at a massive one that was going to happen. I'm going to have to find the video, guys. I'm going to have to find the video, and I will find that video, and I'll put it embedded into the article below so you'll understand, because I'm not getting all the details. It was weeks ago. That it was trillions of volts. It wasn't like millions of volts. It was like a plasma blast that would be trillions of volts, because it would end up electrifying the upper atmosphere. In which case, then you have the ground and the upper atmosphere electrified, and then you have the connectors, where you start having plasma connecting back and forth between the two. And what he was saying was, one of his FEMA contacts, I think it was, did not know anything about this, but was talking. He was an engineer, and he was talking about how they were trying to build basically what would seem like a grounding mechanism that would be able to handle trillions of volts. And he didn't know why. And then this guy, Jacob Israel, I think his name is, explained to him about this theory about these massive plasma bolts, and he went, oh shit, that's what we're building. That's exactly what we're building. That we don't know why. We're engineers. We just get told build this. Didn't know what the reasoning was. That makes sense though. Just going off on the aside again about a capacitor. Earth is a capacitor. Sorry, go ahead, Mercedes.
Danny, didn't you also mention a connection between the Tunguska event and the Wardenclyffe Tower?
That is
one of the theories.
It is a theory. It is.
He was trying to reach one of the North Pole expeditions, and he miscalculated his transmission.
Did you hear what Nick just said? Yeah.
I did.
So it is a theory. That's never been proven. Right? I mean, but then again, like the FBI came and took all his notes away. So where's Tesla's notes? Maybe he's got a little, dear diary, today I blew up a part of Siberia accidentally. Oops. I would be nice to know.
Very quickly to add, it may turn the conversation 90 degrees left, but could that be, in the what if factor, the natural disaster that we think could be why we're on lockdown?
That's what Danny's been saying.
That's what I've been saying for a long time. That my gut says that they know something's about to happen, and that's why they're locking everyone down.
Okay, so
now we have a difference of opinion on this.
Here you go. Now, because of what Bossy said, I was just really it was kicking over in my brain about tensions and about differentials, right? Now you have a continuous homeostasis between the Earth and the Sun, where the Sun is spitting out its solar wind and its charged energy particles, and our magnetosphere protects us from that. We have a homeostasis that exists between the two. Meanwhile, our Earth is actually gathering up energy on its way. And when you have localized lightning events, that is actually a differential in the homeostasis where the clouds have more electrons or the ground have more electrons, and it has to balance itself out, right? So now we've got what we're calling a grand solar minimum. It's starting to look like it's a solar minimum. It's starting to look like a grand solar minimum, which obviously has some sort of a massive effect on the tension and the differential that exists between planet Earth and the sun. So if the case may be that, and now I fucking strongly believe that whatever is coming our way, it's not going to be an asteroid or a comet. It's going to be coming from our sun. And if that grand solar minimum upsets the differential and the tension enough to go the other way, then maybe we could have one of these massive plasma events that comes up out of the ground and creates another Drumheller or Badlands in Alberta, where it literally has the potential to fucking
Grand Canyon
instantly fucking vaporize square kilometers of rock. Sorry, I don't mean to be doom and gloom or fear porn guy, but that's kind of one of the things that I really envision. And because of the differential being so upset right now with the grand solar minimum that we're experiencing, it could be ripe for that kind of an event.
And the thing is, one of my buddies who's a chemist in Australia sent me a little note this morning, Anne and I both, and he was talking again about COVID, and he was talking about, get down, there we go, Mike. He was talking about, again, looking back at the oxygen aspect of COVID. And we talked about altitude sickness, how early on, you guys remember back in March and April, we're getting all these little things that like altitude sickness, that a lot of this was acting as if it was could be based on oxygen absorption and the effects on the body. Well, now, if we're talking about atmosphere, what Nick has just been talking about the atmosphere becoming ionically charged, that is going to affect things like oxygen, ozone, etc., and positive and negatively charged ions, which all can have direct cause and effect when we talk about things like simple things as breathing. Right? Do we know what the effect is of, for example, going back to hydration, exactly. Do we know what the effect is of this type of thing, the ionic charge on water? So because we're talking about dehydration continuously, the symptoms of dehydration are rampant, whether you're talking about your plants in your garden, whether you're talking about in your own body, in the house, the charge in the air. We don't know what the effects of these kinds of massive electrical charges passing through our atmosphere are going to have on those simple oxygen and water, those simple molecules. I use simple as just a way of saying like every day, not simple. We don't understand what their effects are. Now, Anne was talking, and she'd said in this conversation we're having with my friend Philip that the long-term COVID, remember last week we talked about the long COVID symptoms, homeopaths are treating with homeopathic oxygen, ozone, and CO2. Now, Anne, I don't know if you want to jump in. I don't know if you're even here right now.
Denny, we have some cool effects actually with water. Remember, you have distilled water. If it's steam distilled, you can drink it. But if you have it distilled with I don't know if it's in English the same, the ionic changer, like there's like another way to distill it, but you do it like electricity with electricity, so it changes the ions in there, and that water is actually dangerous if you drink that one. Yeah. While steam distilled ones isn't that dangerous, right? So you
water is the most freakiest element on the fucking planet. Seriously. Hold on. Okay, Anne, do you want to jump in here? I want you to talk about that aspect of it.
Okay. Last week we talked about the long COVID symptoms that people are experiencing, and my opinion on long COVID and COVID in general is that it is these symptoms are the result of an adaptation that's going on in the physical body, all bodies, in fact. All aspects of our body, and that the symptom pictures are being caused by our attempt to regain homeostasis in a changing environment. And interestingly, a lot of the words that people use in the long COVID stuff would remind you of electrical currents and disruption in electricity. There's one up there. I put the odd wired sensation of kind of head buzz, making sleep or any kind of sleep impossible. A strange, uncanny, electrified. Yeah. So that kind of language is used a lot by people who are going through these symptom pictures. Now, to get back to what the homeopaths are doing in terms of the treatment of COVID in the more intractable cases, I suppose you could say, which some people would call long COVID, they are in a lot of cases using remedies, not in all cases now, in cases where the symptom picture matches, they're using remedies like ozone, oxygen has been used quite a lot, and in some cases CO2. These would all be in homeopathic potency, and they have found that they've helped, because this problem with oxygen uptake is in some people very difficult to resolve. In some people, they are finding there's a buildup of iron because the iron and the oxygen are all messed up. But yeah, it's a work in progress, I guess, because the long COVID people are really only showing up they'd be people who probably didn't go for homeopathic treatment in the beginning, and are only now showing up for that kind of treatment.
Can I just add a little bit?
Nick just said that's the kind of statement you'll never see in the mainstream news.
Just a Victorian point of view, the Premier has said we'll be wearing masks till next year. And can we just talk about what the mask does? Because it cuts off I go walking and I'm hoping all my fat cells give me energy because I can't breathe. Basically, I can't get the air in.
No, listen. No, Monty, because you've got a point. So we were at the grocery store today. I had to go and get groceries. Fucking lockdown's coming. Got to go get more stock in. And I always wear my mask under my nose regardless if I'm in the grocery store, because fuck that shit. And I have one that I've made myself, that I've made out of a t-shirt. Dawn, you gave me the idea with your sparkly mask. I have a t-shirt, tank top that I've had for fucking donkey's years, and it's really, really thin, but it's got silver threads through it, so it's kind of sparkly. So I cut it up and made a mask out of it because it's really, really thin to breathe through. Needless to say, but it doesn't matter. By the end of the time that I'm finished, by the time I get out of that store, there's this feeling of you cannot catch your breath. And now that can be psychosomatic. Not gonna lie, that can totally be psychosomatic. So we all know how I feel about fucking masks. It can be even kind of that phobia of just having something over your face, like just anything over your face. I can remember as a child when your mom used to take your scarf and fucking wrap it around your face 4 times. Growing up in Northern Ontario, yeah, we wore like scarves to here and hats to here. And you'd get totally, by the time I'd get to school, you'd be like, oh my God, can't fucking breathe, get it off me. But you're still breathing in these particles, regardless of oxygen content, let alone, and there's enough proof now to prove that these masks do indeed drop the oxygen saturation in people. We have enough conclusive proof of this. Just the very fact that you're breathing out and then breathing back in these particles. So it's the moisture in your breath. It is the any toxins that you're exhaling, anything else, it's becoming trapped, and you're just literally you're breathing it back and forth in and out. And the pictures, I was going to talk about this, the show that we did a couple of weeks ago where I just couldn't stay online, it just kept falling off. We're seeing impetigo, staph and impetigo, but like children with impetigo all over their faces because of wearing these masks. And then the doctors give them antibiotics, and the doctors are giving them steroidal creams for it, which will not work. It will not cure. Antibiotics and steroid type based creams will do absolutely nothing for impetigo or staph infections. Nothing. If anything, it will actually exacerbate it and make it worse. Right? So I put out instructions on my wall and was like, look, make this mixture, lavender essential oil and a base oil. That's what you use. Do not use anything else on these impetigo, especially. Impetigo is highly contagious. So basically, if you have children in their school and masks and they've got impetigo coming up, maybe one spot here, but by the end of the week wearing a mask, it's going to be spread all over their entire face. And impetigo can lead into staph infections, especially if you're wearing a mask where it's covered and you're exhaling all these particles and you're just making a beautiful bacterial breeding ground underneath that mask. Again, this science is not settled by a long shot, and they are picking what science to use to prove their reason for putting these stupid mandates in place. Wearing masks makes no logical sense, and the secondary sicknesses and illnesses that are coming from masks are going to be astronomical, and some of these we're not going to see for another couple of years, and you're going to see an uptick, and all of a sudden 3-4 years from now, when they go look back and start studying the reactions to this, it is going to be astronomical, the things that are going to come out. Deb, did you want to ask or throw something in here?
Oh, sorry. I accidentally hit the unmute again. Well, back on the electrical, it was about where's the 75% of the earth being water on that, but also I do have a question. Would staph infection on dog's skin look like yeast infection?
It can start off looking like that. Yep.
Well, I'm wondering if I'm going the wrong way on my dog's skin. Because she's on a yeast-free diet, everything, and the only thing that's helping is right now is a thyme tincture with aloe.
Yeah.
Nothing else is touching it.
Kaolin clay. Deb, whether it's yeast or staph, get some dry kaolin clay.
Got it.
And just like wherever the yeast is, just the white clay, powder all the areas that have it. If she licks it up, it's not going to be a problem. It won't make her sick. It's not going to cause any difficulties. Okay. That will kill yeast. It will also go a long way to helping with staph as well. I use kaolin clay even on my baby. All my babies, when they got diaper rash, I use kaolin clay on them, and it that.
Her skin's dry though.
Hey Deb, you need to get some hemp into your dog system.
Yeah.
I ran out. I've got to order some more from you.
That's your baseline for these animals. I'm telling you.
Okay.
I also expect breaking bones and bone-related stuff coming up, because to balance a pH level of our blood, it takes calcium from our bones. And wearing the mask has this effect.
Well, we're already seeing, I'm going to say this, I'm not going to say we're already seeing, I'm already seeing the amount of broken bones right now, just in people that I know, simple, stupid little things. Gail, stepping out, just twisting an ankle, breaking an ankle badly. When I broke my foot 2 summers ago, I wasn't doing fucking anything. I was just walking and my foot broke. We're seeing these broken bones are actually a big one. And I'll ask here, how many people you guys know of someone who's broken a finger, broken a toe, broken something in the last year or two? Because I'm seeing it everywhere. I had 3 friends this week post pictures of their black and blue feet because they broke a toe or broke a foot. That was this week alone.
Yeah, Christy did too at my house. She fucking broke her little toe.
So there's again, we have to look at that, and we like, what is the reason for people's bones being more brittle? And I'm making an assumption. I'm going on an assumption. More broken bones that I'm seeing, I'm assuming means that bones are more brittle. What does that mean homeostatically? What is being absorbed out of our bones? What is perhaps making them weaker? right? So these are all these kinds of things that goes into those grand, huge ball of fucking symptoms that we're always talking about. That is another one. Radiation. Okay. And this is it. Teeth. I am working on, again, I've had an abscess that keeps trying to come up for a month now. And I keep treating it. So I'm being able to keep it at bay. It's hurting like hell right now at the moment. The amount of people I know who've had an abscessed tooth in the last 6 months, skyrocketing. Like, I've never in my life seen how many people who've either broken a tooth. I don't know how many messages I've gotten from people who've broken teeth in the last 6 months. People who've had, Sherry, who've just had teeth pulled because the all pain in their teeth. The people who've had teeth shattering, that's another one. Like teeth just breaking and shattering all of a sudden. These are symptoms of, or can be, we shouldn't say are, can be symptoms of radiation as well. Especially the gum rot, when you have cavities that are forming not at the bottom of the teeth, not on the surface, but at the gum line. Cavities that form at the gum line a lot of times can be related to radiation.
Yeah, remind me why we agreed to be here for this time.
Yeah, I'm with you, Monty.
Yeah. I don't fucking know, but I hope that I get something sweet ass out of this deal at the end.
Yeah, punch me in the face if I want to come back to this motherfucker.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I don't know fucking why any of us would have agreed to have been here for this time, because holy shit. To tell jokes. Nice, Pam. Yes, we're here for the memes. Exactly. We're here for the memes and the jokes. That's
now, apparently, in my experience in multiple lives, at one point I actually went spiritual Karen and had to go at the Prime Creator, and the Prime Creator did the same thing to me. So yeah, I'm sort of stuffed for being on this. I'm just floating along now. Fucking I think that's why I'm a watcher. Yeah, I have a no plan. It's working out.
You haven't had a choice but to have a no plan. You're in Victoria.
Yeah, so like I'm not going to argue with the director again. I'm just going to stand in the back and just let the movie unfold in front of me.
Yeah. Oh fuck, dudes! I don't know. It's fucking crazy. Like I said, I'm just been. I went to the grocery store today and bought toilet paper because
Oh, you trendsetter.
I know. Actually, that was the joke. I had one like big pack of toilet paper that sits like on the top of the wardrobe, and Nick was going to pull it down because the toilet paper in the bathroom were only about 2-3 rolls left, and I was like, "Don't you touch that. That's the emergency toilet paper. We'll buy some more today." And yeah, I mean, everyone at the grocery store was talking about how today apparently was a lot calmer, but there was a real energy today in the store of franticness. Yeah, good word. Exactly. Franticness. People were right on the fucking edge. You could feel it. You could feel them just seriously on the edge. And several of the store employees that I talked to said that apparently that like the weekend was fucking insane. Like that Monday this morning wasn't as bad, but the weekend was crazy insane. People were, and they seemed to cleared out the entire toilet paper aisle was cleared out again. So I'm like trying to buy toilet paper. I'm like, can anyone tell me what the price of this toilet paper is? Because nothing was stacked where the prices were. Like, and the girl said to me, literally, she said to me, she came with the gun and she goes, "Oh, there's the price." She says, "Oh yeah," she says, "it was just so epically insane this weekend that we've just been bringing out pallets and shoving it in any old place. Wherever there's a spot, just shove the toilet paper in and so that people can get to it."
Hey, the other thing that they're doing, because I went to the store this weekend, and they have all the workers rearranging everything to make it look like they don't have a shortage. So, like, there were huge areas that, used to contain stuff, and all of a sudden they're blocked off, and it has little signs saying, well, they've been relocated over here. So that's your sign. Though not nobody was like acting out here. Everybody was pretty calm here.
There was no one acting out this morning, but there was that air. You could, as soon as you walked in, you could feel the tension. You could feel the tension in the air of all the people. People were quietly, you had two people together, but you could hear, I don't know how many times you're going past them and you can hear them going, okay, what do we have this? Okay, maybe get an extra one of those. You know, like that is.
But Danny, isn't it actually that everything comes together now? The lockdown, the election, the riots, everything is like bottlenecked into this month to exactly the time. And I don't know if it's just like a mixture of everything getting compressed, like every emotion from every angle is now getting pushed through this bottleneck, and they want to see what's happening now. I mean, it's like either you're like preparing now for the lockdown or you're preparing for unrest or whatever. It all boils down to this month, to this bottleneck, to this very point in time. And
it's different here in Victoria because we came out of lockdown on Wednesday, and apparently the 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, there was the amount of people that was just relieved they could leave the house without the fear of the police doing shit. It was the same level as the Christmas sales. That's how many people were out there. And there were a couple of people that were, part of the anti-lockdown movement, where it's like, are you people idiots? Like, only 3 days earlier, you were saying everyone stay at home, but the government says you can go out now, so everyone's just jam-packed next to each other wearing a mask. It's like, well, is there a killer virus or isn't there? Like, that's my pet peeve. It's not a pandemic. I always say lockdown because if you look up the meaning of pandemic, this is fuck all. Yeah. I mean, there are people died and I'm not happy about that, but it's not like, it's not the Spanish flu or even in the movie Contagion, where if you get it, you die in 48 hours. Yeah. This one, you have to wait 2 weeks to find out if you have it. Yeah.
But they're acting
you gotta
like
go have a test just to find out that you have it here. Yeah, exactly.
But Danny, but they're acting like it is Ebola or like
exactly.
The Spanish
No. Exactly. But that's again, like Nick just said, that's the media. So again, who controls the media? Because it's not the governments, obviously. The corporations control the media, right? This is one of those pieces that's just. It's funny because we had Halloween. Now, England is not the Halloween country that, say, America and Canada is, but it has become very, very big here. So my kids were like right to the day, by 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon, my kids were like semi in costume. Like all they had to do was kind of like put the final pieces on to decide if they were going to go trick-or-treating. And as we got to like 4 o'clock, 4:30, those times when trick-or-treaters would start going out and looking. No one on the streets, no one. And by like 7 o'clock, Nick saw a couple of kids walking down the street in costume. So that evening, Nick and I went over to the pub for our anniversary. And we're talking to the guys at the pub, and we said to Martin, one of our buddies, and said, so like, what's it usually like here at Halloween? He goes, he says, fucking, it's crazy here usually. Like, we have quite a nice park, green space park in between our street and the next street over. And he says, it's usually just packed with kids. Like this neighborhood is very residential. So we said, it's usually packed with kids all everywhere. And I'm like, what's going on? He was like, no one sent their kids out to go trick-or-treating, and no one prepared for trick-or-treaters. And that was that feeling, like I'd said on the last astrology show, that they're going to cancel all this stuff. Like, and Halloween in a lot of places did get canceled. But even in the places where they didn't come out and say Halloween's canceled in England, they might have, because nothing happened. People made arrangements. So, for example, I had a couple of friends in the UK who'd made arrangements with their next door neighbors so they could take their kids out, go to the next door neighbor's house and the one after that, and then go back home. But pre-arranged to know that that was what they were going to do. So their kid got at least, little guys who are like 5 and 6 years old. So they got to do at least a little bit of trick or treating. Nothing. Like, it was crazy. And that was, and I said to my daughter Quinlan, I said, one of the other pieces to this that isn't really looked at is the cost. As a parent with 4 kids, when you deal with Halloween, the cost of making costumes or buying or whatever it is for 4 kids, and then the cost of candy and snacks to hand out. Bet you there wasn't a lot of people this year who were in any kind of financial shape to be able to put out, 100 quid's worth of candy to hand out at the doors. People didn't decorate their houses. And that was the thing my buddy Martin said. Well, usually all the houses are decorated, Halloween things and jack-o'-lanterns and decorations, etc. Nothing, not a single house on the street had a single decoration up. These things cost money. And if people like I said, knew that the lockdown was coming, you make going, I guess, no Halloween this year because, we better pinch our pennies together. Same
well,
thing.
You get rice or pasta as candy this year.
yeah, giving out bags of rice and pasta.
Here in Victoria, there was 2 instances of
rolls of toilet paper.
Now use this wisely. 2 instances of like, what the fuck? During lockdown, which is the hardcore lockdown, stage 4, where you're only allowed to leave the house to go shopping for an hour and only 5 kilometers from your house. They were selling Halloween decorations at the supermarket. It's like, well, hang on. Do we have Halloween? For starters, we're Australian. Why are we having Halloween? We're in the Southern Hemisphere. And they were selling that. And it's like, well, that's the cognitive dissonance in the brain. Also, our football season, AFL or footy, that actually finished. It finished a month later than usual, but they still had a public holiday in Victoria during stage 4 lockdown. Like, I thought the last 10 weeks was the fucking public holiday. It's, you can have a public holiday, so I still can't leave the house. I still can't do that. Anyway.
You just said
I
something
need to defend, sorry.
You just said something very, very interesting, Monty. You said, even though we're in the Southern Hemisphere, why in the hell we celebrate Halloween? Danny and I were just reading something very fucking interesting by a guy named Randall Carlson. You may have seen him on Joe Rogan show. And he was talking about how all the religions and societies across the world seem to have some sort of common celebration right around this time of year, at Halloween. And it looks to him like it's some sort of racial memory of a global event, i.e. could be the Noah floods that hit the earth, and the racial memory of it is existing through the ritual of Halloween or Samhain or the Day of the Dead through to today, and we've just forgotten the actual roots of the purpose of the celebration at this time of year specifically, because it was when whatever it was came into the fucking sky, did what it did, and fucked with our planet, that we celebrate at this time of year. And it doesn't matter what country you're in, what hemisphere you're in.
Yeah.
I have, it's a 3-part article, and I'm going to post it. Remind me. I'll post the links because thank you for reminding me, because I want to talk about this. And that was something that came up, that came through, fucking Facebook. Shit comes through your feed, and you start reading it. Oh, that's really fucking interesting. And then your page resets itself and glitches, and then you can never, ever find that post again because you haven't taken note of whose post it was. So that's something that had come through, and it was talking about the origins of Samhain, of All Hallows Day, of All Souls Day, Halloween, etc. And it was talking about it, and talking about every ancient culture has a celebration at this time of year, all about honoring the dead. And he said, the article basically was like, if you go back, there are a few really old cultures who still remember the reason why it is celebrated. And it was a celebration of an event that happened at this time of year that was a flood. And it's to celebrate all those who died and those who survived this cataclysm. And I had never heard the flood aspect of that before. So I went looking. And like Nick said, Randall Carlson, I'm pretty sure the article is Randall Carlson. Yeah. Is it? So it's a 3-part. It's not light reading. I highly recommend you read it though. Phenomenal. Tons of information. Really, really interesting stuff. But about that racial memory aspect of a catastrophic event that happened. And that is why we celebrate the Day of the Dead. That is why I celebrate All Souls Day. That is why all of these things are celebrated at this time. And it doesn't matter whether it's the ancient Peruvians, the Mexicans, the Japanese, the Egyptians, the Aborigines, the North American original peoples. This is an ancient celebration that now it's been warped. It's been warped and twisted by religion, etc. So now you've got a whole Halloween and even Samhain, right, of being celebrated on this day has still been twisted to this Celtic singularity, if you will. It was a singular celebration that the Celts were celebrating, but it wasn't, because it was a global event. This is a global thing that goes through all these very, very interesting. But again, it goes into talking about the comets. It goes into talking about some of the background of. They talk about the comets. Is the Taurids? Talk about the Taurids. Oh, yeah. And one of the things that struck me in the original article that I'd read was that the comets that came through that caused the flood. I'm fighting with my pillow. Hold on.
Came from the Pleiades direction.
If you looked at where the Pleiades was in the sky, that these comets looked as if they came from the Pleiades, which is interesting because all the way through and all the stuff that I've researched for fucking eons, right? Decades, the new agey kind of stuff, a lot of this, the Pleiades plays this huge role. Everyone talks about the Pleiades. Ancient cultures talk about the Pleiades. Why the Pleiades? Like, even as a constellation in the sky, it's not the Big Dipper. No. Like, everyone fucking knows the Big Dipper. I don't think I could point out where the Pleiades is in the sky. I don't think
Australia, the Aboriginal culture, and which is very fractalized. I think there's 700 nations across the whole thing. But usually they have a very similar creation myth or dream time. And from my understanding is that the Pleiades system is called the Seven Sisters.
Yes, it's the Seven Sisters. But the same thing, I always have had this question of like, why the Pleiades, of all the different constellations out there, why is the Pleiades always put up as, like you say, the Seven Sisters? And in one of the other ancient cultures in either North or South America has almost the identical. They call it the Seven Mothers or the Seven Sons or something. Like there's another whole. I've always questioned why the Pleiades. And then I read this article, and like you sit there and you go, well, if that's where it looked like it came from, is that why that placement of that one particular constellation is so ingrained into so many cultural belief structures, right? They talk about the fact of the position of the Pleiades at midnight on October 31st is at 12 o'clock, like boom, on the Northern Hemisphere. So interesting. It's just one of those, like a little piece that I wanted to throw out there. It's just a little bit of interesting to research. Yeah, darling.
Danny, the Celtic day ends at sundown and begins at sundown.
Yeah.
So technically, if we want to use today's date, Samhain is actually November 1st.
Yes.
Not the 31st.
Oh, well, yeah.
And in some Celtic traditions, they talk about
use a date.
Yeah.
Right.
It isn't. No, it is related to the Celts had a moon calendar, like the Jews and the Egyptians. They had a moon calendar. Therefore, as far as I learned, it was the last autumn new moon, not full moon, where they all their fires were extinguished and relighted from one of the druids who went around with the new fire for the new year.
That's where month comes from. It's month. It's moon. So it was warped into month. I just realized as well, because here in Australia, we celebrate Christmas, which is a celebration of the winter solstice at the height of summer. So it's that British thing of we're just following along the northern hemisphere, and so they have the northern hemisphere holidays exactly 6 months difference. It shifted because our Halloween is technically Beltane.
Exactly.
But technically, that's also a summer solstice for you guys, right?
Right. The summer solstice for you guys is our winter solstice. But again, it's not about harvest, right? So that's what we get told.
Yeah.
The Samhain has to do with harvest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yet, even the Origines celebrated that. Well, that's not harvest for them. That's spring.
No.
It doesn't make sense. It's not, because again, it's how the story gets convoluted and twisted into a narrative, and the original meaning may have been completely lost, right?
Well, then that's what the Christian church has gone, oh, these Celts had a good calendar. We'll just use every day and just call it something else. And they've just labeled all the Christian stuff on top of the Celtic holidays.
Well, I mean, that's what Christmas is. Christmas was taken from Mithras and Yule, right? Just December 25th as a date was the celebration of the birth of Mithras in the Mithraic religions, which was the Roman religions, and Yule is celebrated on the 21st to the 25th. So, along comes the Romans who would, if you read the whole thing of Constantine, it was like he had to unite his kingdom. So therefore, he made the new Christian religion and invented it. But in order to make it palatable to the Romans, who were Mithraic worshippers, they used all of their dates, their holy dates, etc., were all just transferred over from one into the other religion so that they could squish it together.
And isn't Christmas like the 25th of December? That's roughly 3 days after the solstice, winter solstice, where the sun is at its lowest. It sits there for 3 days because of the way that the
That's
earth wobbles.
right. 3 days.
3 days later, you look at Christmas and it's like, that sounds like Easter. And then once after the 3 days, the sun starts. The sun is risen and starts moving towards the height, which is the summer solstice, which is actually,
Go ahead, Christy.
For Halloween, is it not the harvesting of food, but for the Southern Hemisphere especially, is remember soul, going back to what you found with the flood mythology being passed down and worldwide death? Harvesting of souls makes more sense,
doesn't it? Which is All Souls Day.
Event.
Well,
so what? I'm wondering what happens. I'm wondering what happens 6 months later, which is Beltane, which is at the end of April, where apparently
the Taurids appear twice a year, in October, November, and again in the spring. So if the Taurids were the trigger, if it was, for example, if it was a comet that crashed into the Earth, etc., or what we would call asteroids, and Nick's got a theory about, but we're already over time. If that was already in play, and if that was the trigger point, right, doesn't mean that it didn't happen again in the spring.
Yeah, 6 months.
Right? Like 6 months. Yeah. So like maybe whatever dust particles that came through could have, hold on, I got something going on my computer here. the dust, the asteroids, whatever it was that came through, could have come through again the following cycle, which would have been the spring cycle. I don't know.
I still just like the image that it's Zeus with an ice hockey stick hitting the rocks, going, "Take this, mortals, whack!"
Whack. Yeah, there you go.
Exactly. He's on the asteroid belt, just going, "Yeah, piss me off." Turn me
this is what you get.
Christmas. You want this? Yeah, but with a Greek accent. Yeah.
With a Greek accent. Yeah, you're funny. Okay, well, my darlings, time is up. Nick has finished all his pastry making, and now I've got to go finish all the guts to go into the pies.
Is Ann still there?
I don't. Is Ann? Yeah, there's Ann.
I made butter tarts.
So there you go. We're having butter tarts with dinner too. Saturday is the astrology show, so that will be at noon GMT. You guys can all do your own figuring out from there. Wait, you guys in North America have done the switch over, right? Right, so we're all settled. We're all back at the 5 hours difference time zone between Eastern and England. Okay, good. Easy. And then Monday will be the UnFuckIt discussion. And we'll see what happens in the next 7 days. It's going to be fucking interesting.
Quickly, my roundtable, which is at 2 a.m. Wednesdays, Eastern Standard Time, United States. Last time we had an election in the US, I actually broadcast Trump's acceptance speech. So if you're awake and you want to see what's happening, I'll
at
be
2 o'clock
on.
in the morning.
Revolution Radio. Yeah, 2 o'clock morning.
2 o'clock in the morning.
US time. Yeah. Hey, you know, elections are fun.
Yeah. And if there's any last minute bets for the end of the world before November 3rd, the bookies are open.
Bookies are open. Yeah. Okay, darlings, I love you, and I talk to you all later. Bye.
Bye. Have a nice week. Anyhow,
I'm gonna hide in my house. I ain't going fucking nowhere.
Me neither.
Step isn't the right one. Not too sharp, I got anything left. Look for it at the right time, but it doesn't seem to come. Or do I get distracted by the curvy flesh?